Record. All right, today's lecture is going to be papers of the Hungarian Adhesive Revenues, and Charles is with us today, and he's going to share. Please keep your questions until the end, unless Charles asks for them. It's a rather long one, so he may take a break a couple times through it. And other than that, Charles, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Papers of Hungarian Adhesive Revenues. This lecture focuses to the paper of revenues with a bit outlook to the postage definitive issues because of many dependencies between them. It was made this week and had to correct some disturbing mistakes after it was sent with the inviting to this meeting. I have to apologize that my English could be better, but I hope in the language of philately helps us in understanding. This last corrected version will be available on the website of SHP, of course. The paper carries the image of stamps and preserves it. Such way it allows us in exploring the past. However, all philatelists can be considered as paper archaeologists. A hidden but can be made mostly well visible attribute of some distinct papers named watermark was a very popular kind of collecting in the last century. Today is not so common soon, but some enthusiastic collectors with lyrical inclination called it the soul of stamps. Knowing the properties of papers is very important for stamp experts too in certification of quality and authenticity. That is why I choose this topic, especially emphasize my favorite philatelic field. This is the fiscal philately of Hungary. Maybe it is not a big surprise from me, isn't it? Papers of Hungarian Adhesive Revenues. This lecture focuses.
Next.
Contents. There are 6 periods of the 172 years history of stamp issues used in Hungary, beginning from 1850. Of course, the classic periods of beginning from 1850. Of course, the classic periods of Hungarian productions, see chapters 2 to 4, are the most sophisticated and may be exciting for us. But we have to a closer look also to the first period when stamp issues of Austria were used in the territories of Hungary. Also to the Chapter 1 Forerunners. The stamp issued by the Austrian postal and financial managements were used in Hungary after the defeat of the freedom fight in 1849 until the compromise in 1867. These stamps was designed in Austria. All of them has parallel issues with same design for Lombardy and Venice. I will not go into these issues because their Hungarian use didn't occur. Several kinds of different papers were used in these nearly 2 decades. A brief look at them is not quite off topic because the postage and revenue stamps are not only leading part of Hungarian collections. Our first stamps inherited several attributes of the former Austrian stamps. Even the first produced stamps in Vienna for Hungary in 1867 and 68 were printed onto Austrian treasury papers. Off topic. This is an overview page from an exhibit for the Austrian postage stamps used in Hungary too. I have completed it in the right with images of watermarks. The first postage definitive stamps issued in 1850 were produced onto handmade paper. There was a watermark Kiki HM in the middle of the sheet. It is the abbreviation of Kaiserliche und Königliche Handelsministerium, in English Imperial and Royal Ministry of Commerce. Part of a letter from this inscription can be rarely seen on some stamps when the printing of image was shifted. The paper was changed in 1856, December, to a machine-made paper without watermark because it was definitely cheaper than the hand-made paper. The smoothing roller, named as Egwitter roller, was completed with watermark letters in 1864 for safety reason. The same paper of treasury was used for the first postage definitive issue for Hungary in 1860. shifted. The paper.
Sorry. I am
This
not
is an
practiced right
overview
enough.
for Austrian postage newspaper stamps and fiscal newspaper tax stamps used in Hungary too. The first issue in 1851 were produced only onto handmade paper and without any watermark. They were used for postal delivery with reduced fare of single newspaper or bundle of newspapers. That was the reason of the 4 different colored values: 610 Kreutzer blue, 6 Kreutzer yellow or red, and 30 Kreutzer pale pink. The paper was changed to machine-produced paper when the first adhesive revenue of Austria was introduced. You can see right to the 4 newspaper stamps the green 2 Kreutzer Zeitungsstempelmarke for taxing of foreign newspapers arriving from abroad, except of the territories of German postal agreement. These are the first adhesive revenue stamps of the world. They were produced in sheet. It were placed into circulation in 1st March 1853. The stamps were redesigned at the monetary reform and parallel with the definitive issues later. The paper was changed for newspaper stamps in 1864, parallel with the introducing of sheet watermark Briefmarken, but with a slightly different inscription, Zeitungsmarken. The order about change of handmade paper to the definitely cheaper machine-produced paper came in June 1854. This paper originated from 2 private paper mills from G. Reichle. It was thinner and flatter, normally with thickness around 800 mm. All sheets contained the watermark once, with the initials of the owner's name in lilies and the inscription NRO 41. Some stamps in the sheet carry a part of that. The same design and paper was used for Austrian and Italian denominations. See the 2 illustrations. The Austrian Kreutzer worth 5 times more than an Italian cent. Also 45 Kreutzer cent worth in Italy 225 cents. That gives the bit range 2 lira 25 denominations for the design of originally 45 Kreutzer. These new papers were named Stempelpapier because it was applied first time to the fiscal stamps of Austria. They are the first stamps of Austria too, with perforated toothes. The set has 22 denominations, from 1 Kreutzer to 20 Gulden, with different dimensions ascending by the order of the face values.
Do you have any questions? We can stop here. No? Then I go back towards.
That gives a new plan owned by the Treasury began to work in 1856. The machine-produced paper of that has the watermark of Austrian coat of arms and the letters say. The paper is not so coarse and it contains more cellulose than the earlier paper by Reichle, so it is mostly yellowish. The thickness of paper was not changed and it is invariable. Cellulose. At the monetary reform in 1st November 1858 appeared a very urgent need for new stamps in Vienna value. 100 Kreutzer became equal 1 Gulden instead of 60 Kreutzer equal 1 Gulden in the old CM currency. The letter CM were removed from all the modern plates and the leaf frame were printed in brown instead of green. Some new face values has to be created too. It was fulfilled by typographic print onto copies of some plates with removed denomination from every positions. That was a huge work and it has to be done in a big hurry in the available few weeks. The face values were printed typographically at that denominations as a third step into the sheets. See this kind of stamps in the shown exhibiting sheet right in the first column of 4. Later, mostly only in the following year, the numbers were engraved into the plate's positions by position, see second column, and they were printed from copper plate in a second step together with the black stamp image. A rose mutation was produced too because the silver money of Lombardy was different from the paper money in Austria. See in columns 3 the typographic and 4 the engraved Italian stamps. The usage of brown stamps was prohibited in Lombardy. The usage of Italian issues in Hungary cannot be ruled out, but we don't know any such case recently. Beginning in 1858 soon and ended in 1859, all mother plates were created as engraved plates with new denominations. The set consists 28 denominations soon, and all of them can be printed again in 2 brown and black steps. A new kind of security were applied from middle of 1859, the so-called Hausner paper. He was a chemist who invented the impregnated stamp paper. When the cancellation were removed, the discoloring of impregnated paper exposed the fraud. The experiments of impregnation caused 3 kinds of paper: blue in some shades, bluish gray, and dark blue Lombardy color. In the set here, 4 kinds of the stamps, except the dark blue, are shown, the 2 non-impregnated, and the first 2 kind of impregnated papers. Exposed the
Sorry.
The 47 face values of these 2 similar but different issues have 10 shades of paper and 4 variations of watermark. It became a measurable and huge philatelic area to collecting the combinations of paper kinds and denominations. Also possible reconstructing the complete watermark, including the variations of watermark and for all denominations. Paper kinds.
Sorry.
After a long dispute between highly appreciated philatelists in the years of 1990s until 2008, it has become internationally accepted that the postage stamps ordered and issued by the Hungarian state in 1867 had to be considered the first postage stamps of the country. The denominations from 2 to 15 were used exclusively only in Hungary before their parallel use began to, without our questioning and consent, some months later in Austria. There was nothing to dispute about the first Hungarian revenues issued a year later because they were valid only in Hungary. It can be a little confusing that the compromise placed the southern border band under joint military administration of the 2 states. For this territory, the Hungarian revenues got a golden-brown double-headed eagle oval print indicating the joint military fiscal administration. It worked until 1873. Some fiscal catalogs listed these stamps mistakenly as Austrian or even Croatian issues, although the Hungarian coat of arms with the Holy Crown are clearly visible on the stamps. Among several rarities is the most hunted stamp of military border is the newspaper text stamp of blue Wankreutzer. It is known recently only 13 remained copies. However, it was only prepared but never issued into circulation. The typographic precursors with text on 5 pieces are made proudly, probably by a well-known stamp dealer in Vienna. See the images in grayscale. Administration. The postage definitives of 1867 were produced in Vienna onto treasury paper with watermark. The watermark of stamps for letter is Briefmarken, and the watermark of the newspaper stamps Zeitungsmarken. The paper is the same than the last postage issue of 1864 in Austria. It is averagely 1/10 millimeter thick. Below this is thin. Over it is called thick paper. Is the same. The treasury, so-called Stempelpapier, was used for producing Hungarian revenues in Vienna first. The complete set in the green stamps became 29 pieces long, when appeared a need later for an added 20 Kreutzer value in Hungary in 1873. It was not produced in Vienna yet, ergo cannot found on treasury paper of Austria, of course. The treasury papers of these stamps is 5 to 600 millimeter thick and has three variants, a yellowish, a white, and a bluish. The white is a bit thinner and transparent than the other two. The bluish paper is definitely rare. It is present nearly only in special collections and cannot be found normally in stock of stamps. In some stamps in the sheet, a part of a letter of watermark can be seen. Both three illustrations has less or more sized part of a letter. White and the blue. The set of general documentary revenues has a parallel issue for the military border. The added stamps to the set, so-called adnex, like advertisement, calendar, and newspaper text stamps, has also a parallel issue for the military border. They are printed onto treasury paper of Austria, watermarked Stempelmarken, except the Philately. On that, of course, we find the watermark Zeitungsmarken. The red 2 Kreutzer of newspaper text stamp for military border was not fully prepared. It remained a proof on a thick orange-yellow paper. The Philately. This is a page from exhibit again about the proofs of Hungarian revenues. The two die proofs on the top of page have a thin grayish paper. The trial prints in the middle are on a thin yellowish paper in three shades. An orange yellow is the first, a sulfur yellow the second, and a light yellow the third. The last line of trial prints in the bottom have all the second kind of the papers. Is the first, a sulfur. The mother plates of revenues remain in use nearly 3 decades after the production were moved from Austria to Hungary in 1870. Only the colors were changed 2 times in that time. However, the design of printing method of postage stamps was changed several times in this period. However, the plates and equipments for printing revenues have been moved from Vienna into Buda. To producing stamps domestically began in 1st October 1870. Because obviously we cannot use the watermarked treasury paper of Austria, it was used the pelure paper imported from a private consortium abroad. This paper is very thin and transparent, so the image of stamp is visible on the back too. So see the largest known unit that is surely from this first Hungarian stamp production, and it was reconstructed from a strip of 3 and a strip of 4 by my own hands. The first produced Hungarian stamp could be exactly this denomination of 1 Kreutzer. It is the less value, and the need for it was high because it was used the most common on receipts. Seemingly, dices of the advertisement stamps were mistakenly used for the green frame. Compare the edges with larger image sizes of other 1 Kreutzer stamps. The wider edges of this stamp is a misprint and show the inexperience of the first production. This is the recently known earliest philatelic object with a domestically printed adhesive stamp of Hungary. A receipt about 55 forint, 5 kreuzer, written in Pest in 70th October 1870, and a correct fee of 5 kreuzer paid in the first month with a domestically produced revenue stamp of Hungary, 5 kreuzer on pellular paper printed in bright grass green. Correct fee. The domestic production of postage stamp was prepared and done in hurry in the late weeks in 1870. The used paper is an around 1/10 mm thick rough import paper from Austria. In lack of the originally decided but slowly prepared copper plates, the printing method was changed temporarily for lithographic implementation because the first deadline of planned issue was 1st January 1871. It failed because the poor quality of the first productions. The face of the ruler looked very blemish on the first produced 2 kreuzer stamps. A huge amount of produced sheets were burned, but some sheets of the trial prints in the Ministerial of Commerce avoided the destruction, and later they were used officially in post offices in 1873. We can identify 36 remained pieces of that stamp until now. All are used, and one of them is on a letter guarded by the Hungarian Stamp Museum. See the known 35 images in the right. This research was published first in the catalogue of Hungfilex 2022 this month, but by my own work supported by several friends of mine. Only one image is missing yet. All help are welcome, of course. Officially, the new term of issue became 1st June. The denominations of lithographic stamps were issued in different days, June and July. The galvanic plates were also done, and the engraved stamps changed in the traffic, the lithograph stamps in the following months soon. The main usage of the lithographic stamps was ongoing only some months. That's why they are highly valued pieces in all Hungarian collections. The used paper was around 1/10 mm thick, rough import paper from Austria, but the last engraved production of some denominations happened soon onto a thinner import paper of the following envelope issue. Hungarian collection. This is a page from exhibit again, telling the domestic stamp production history of classic Hungarian issues. The last column shows the stamps of postage issues, the right the revenues. The Austrian pellular import paper was changed to normal thickness paper with sheet watermark in 1873, but only for the revenue stamps. There were applied 2 kinds of watermarks, separate for the kreuzer and another for the foreign denominations. The same paper was applied for the postage definitive so-called envelope issue in 1874, but without watermark. The sheet watermarks were changed in 1876 to repeated stamp watermarks in 2 different kinds of the kreuzer and for foreign denominations again. The watermark rollers were created in Austria, but later applied too in the first Hungarian paper plant with machine paper production line in Nagyszabos. The half kreuzer framed in blue in that row is the rarest stamp issued by the Hungarian state. There are now 3 remaining copies of them recently. The 2 watermarks kreuzer and forint were changed to letters KR and FT in 1881. The KR watermark was applied for the postage stamps too and known as postage watermark 1 of Hungary. A plant in Fiume won the tender for delivery of paper for stamp production in 1887. The roller of watermark KR was worn out and they cannot use in Fiume. So a new roller were created with different dimensions. That is known as watermarks 1OA, and after the long philatelic research it can be most
EI. The image yeah, that was the last sentence. The image about the differences between the two watermarks is available in the catalog of Hungarian stamps since 2019. Look after it at the issue of 8081. This is the watermark for the last postage and revenue issues of Kreutzer period.
One of the favorites are for collectors the paper crisp that appear mostly on recess printing because the paper has to be wet for that printing method. If it is not wet equivalable, the paper wrinkles when printed and the wrinkles appear after drying. These phenomena are present of course at Revenues too. See some nice examples here. It is not known. The koruna was based on gold against the former silver-based currency of forint Kreutzer. The reason of change was the exploration of large silver mines in America. It is not known generally in circles of collectors that the first stamp issues in the koruna currency of Hungary were revenues. The paper with all watermark was used first, and when it was took out, a new paper with watermark of Holy Crown appeared for both the filler and the koruna denominations. The plant of Nagyszabos get back the supply of paper in the following year. The brand new watermark roller with the watermark 2 didn't fit to the production line, unfortunately. So a new roller were created with different dimensions as watermark 3. So the fresh roller of watermark 2 remained intact and we can admire in the Stamp Museum in Budapest. It is a part of the roller with the filigree of watermark 2. On the right, we can see two rollers side by side in the museum. The left piece was used in Fiume until 1898 and the other in Nagyszabos later. The size differences can be clearly seen. The roller of Fiume was shorter and smaller. (1898). I want not to show the well-known postage stamp from this point. Instead of them, only the revenues are shown because they were produced parallel onto the same papers than the postage definitives. The former so popular special collecting by positions of watermarks was the favorite art of postage philately. Huge collections can be built by combination with other attributes like types or perforation variants. It is not only possible with revenues but even more easier for two reasons. Once, the definitely larger size of the stamps are more appropriate for identifying the watermarks and its positions. Second, the revenues are more accessible because of the less collecting community. The definitely larger size of the stamps are more appropriate for identifying the watermarks and its positions. Second, the revenues are more accessible because of the less collecting community and also the lower prices. Because of the watermark in the paper of stamps appears in two positions, standing and laying. In special collection, it can be combined by the three kinds of the perforation too. The paper with double-cross watermark 7 was used laying until 1923. After then, a new watermark with 4 double crosses came. Not generally known, but two positions can be differentiated with this watermark too. The gap between the crosses is wider horizontally in the standing 7A position. The wider gap appears vertically in the other 7B position. See the gray lines in the illustrations in the right. After the inflation of Corona, a new gold-based currency called pengő was introduced in Hungary. The value of pengő was similar than the Corona before the inflation. Around 6 pengő were worth $1.
Oh, sorry.
The new design for pengő denominations were printed first onto former watermark 8. The same set were produced from 1928 onto paper with watermark 9 named 3 double crosses. Two positions of this watermark can be differentiated too. In the A position, the base of horizontal crosses falls to the left of the vertical standing crosses. In the B position, they are to the right. When paper with watermark 9 viewed from behind, the most dense specimens are much less translucent and even virtually independent of their thickness. Looking at their backs, these also have a less visible watermark. In slide mode of scanner, I showed quite definitely that the less 3 stamp signed X are denser because they are definitely darker than the others signed Y. This is a brand new discovery by me and that inspired me to create this whole lecture. It is really funny, isn't it? The following designs were printed onto the same watermark paper and these revenues were used until the end of the Second World War. After the war, these stamps were used with security reasons with diagonal overprint okirati illeték. The following designs were in the hyperinflation in 1945 and 6, a set of overprints with revolution appeared first. A new design followed it with the same range of denominations. The several overprints with currency adópengő in 1946 are not shown here, but only the last issue with the new design in 1946. All issues were printed onto the former paper with watermark 8. In the spring of 1945, the fleeing arrow cross fascist Hungarian government took the treasury with the country gold reserves. In fact, this deficit was the main cause of the hyperinflation. After the return of this treasure to the country, a new Hungarian currency could be created, which eliminated the inflation. Initially, the market price of forint was still worth $14.15. This exchange rate has unfortunately risen to just over 300 forints since then. 1/3 of this depreciation has taken place in the last 10 years, which means a significant acceleration of the recent third steels inflation that began about 40 years before. The paper for the first issue in the new currency forint filler remained unchanged with watermark 9.
Here is a problem. I will solve it. The last deal. The design has been changed with new coat of arms of the communist power. The watermark was also changed 2 years later to the symbol of Soviet Union, a 5-pointed star. Oh. Firstly, the stamp with 50 filler denomination was produced because of the change of coat of arms of the Hungarian state in 1956 in the revolution. But it became not issued because of political changes. That was a renewed depression supported by the Soviet Union. And the stock was later destroyed. Some sheets were saved privately for destruction. The watermark position is laying star. no sound. The revenue stamps with the new coat of arms, Kada regime, that shows again the 5-pointed stars of communists. The watermark of paper remained certain both in the standing and laying position. And nearly the last issue. New design with socialist symbols came in 1966 for revenues. Watermark 13, both standing and laying position until 1974, and a new paper without watermark after them. The new paper was imported from Swiss with optical brightness and were combed before the print. Import paper were used without watermark and from different sources after the end of the occupation by the Soviet power. Also, we arrived to the beginning because no Hungarian paper mill paper plant worked for stamps. We imported the paper again. And this is the recent and recent issue. Import paper were used too from different sources. Because of frauds, the design of highest values became added elements in 2004, here left and right from the coat of arms. And the perforation was changed with a security cross in the middle of the vertical edge. Here you can see. The modern informatics slowly displaces the revenue stamps. They have been totally withdrawn in some countries from circulation already, such in Austria. Their use became very limited in Hungary as well. The payment of fees works mostly by bank transfer already. However, this is not a problem for a philately because it makes only this philately field a complete closed correction area. That was my presentation.
Thank you very much. You know, that was a pretty nice presentation. I got to admit, I haven't seen that kind of revenue paper before.
I have some technical problems because I want to turn this video turn this PowerPoint slideshow to video, but it cannot. I cannot do it with old PowerPoint 2007. It has no such a function, but I will surely next time. I have many topics for presentations, and I offered in the Hunfilex who were there. I don't remember exactly the name. Okay, I offer that every page can be a new lecture. I think so that about 60 pages I have.
Wow, crap. Charles, one of the things I saw in your presentation was something called calendar stamps. And all the countries I collect, I've never heard of a calendar stamp.
No, it is present in Austria, in also in Great Britain. I mean, the calendars was only nearly the first, but the first revenues was the playing cards with signets, stamped value stampings. And after then comes the calendars.
Gotcha.
After the calendars, they introduced the Stempelpapier, and after the Stempelpapier came the newspaper text, also with signets.
Yeah, that's the first time I'd ever seen that term. So
yes,
I learn something every day.
But this is the press stamp period. maybe 50 or 100 years before the first postage stamps.
How hard is it to actually find the material that you have? I know that you said, there's a lot of, if not unique, very close to unique material there. I mean, early on in the presentation, you said, it wasn't widely collected and it was cheap. And so it was easy to find, but now you're saying it's not so easy anymore.
Yes, I collected this field since my childhood, also more than 50 years long.
That explains the comment.
Yeah.
So you got it. You bought this material when it was easy to buy.
Yes. What you see, that was nearly all of my material.
Gotcha.
Except the 2 Kreutzer newspaper text stamp, and I have 2 legs in the military border. The 2 Kreutzer advertisement stamp and the calendar stamp of military border.
Maybe, how do you study the watermarks? I mean, I have several watermark detectors. I got one handy, little guy.
Simply Epson Perfection scanner. No.
Oh, you do it with a scanner?
A dia scanner is even fit better. When you light through the stamp, you see everything, and you can set the best transparency on the scanner. Also, graphical software, you can strengthen the lines of the filigrane if needed.
Wow, I never tried a scanner. That's interesting.
The Epson Perfection has a good scanner because the slide of the lighting through is enough wide for my revenue steps also. Normally they are only 36 millimeter wide, but the Epson Perfection has about 12 or 16 millimeter wide slide for lighting through us.
Well, I've got to go explore that. I'll tell you, finding watermarks and telling the differences, especially some of the differences that you showed, are going to be hard. I mean, you got to be able to measure some of that stuff. The width of those borders, especially the ones where it was vertical and the next one was horizontal.
They are the experiences of old Hungarian philatelists. That was his favorites, the watermarks. Today is not so common and popular.
Well, I tell you, I for one certainly enjoyed your talk. I hope you do more of them for us. I don't know if anybody else has questions for Charles, but it was certainly enlightening for me. I mean, anytime I get to learn something new, I don't care what field, it's always important and enjoyable.
I had a question, Károly. Well, why did you focus on the general revenues? There's sales tax revenues and judicial revenues and other revenues. Was there a reason, or?
No, I didn't have enough time to, and it would be too much. There are also the municipals present. Maybe a next lecture I can show you the other revenues. They have a whole unknown and strange watermarks also, the municipals like Brașov, some 3 bars and others, Hermanets. So also the other non-general revenues like general tax or trading with shares or I don't know exactly the
sales and judicial.
Yeah, they are written in my book, and there are mostly the rarest stamps of Hungary also present in the foreign affairs. For example, some I have the most flags in these fields in my collections after 50 years or so.
Did you say you wrote a book on this?
Which?
Did you write a book?
Yes, the book is available in the US also in English,
In
because
English.
that is 40 pages, or the name is Fiscal Philately of Hungary. I have 2 copies here in Hungary only.
And you book appears in one issue in Hungarian, and there's also an English version.
English version, I have 2 copies, and who was the man? Oh, it is a shame I forgot his name. Gary was.
Is it available through the society? Is the book available through the society?
In the Royal Philatelic Society, yes.
But not our society. Not yet.
Not recently. We discussed about it, and who was the? I give a copy for a member of our society.
Greg Gessel?
Yes, Gressel. He was here present in Humfilex, and he got a piece and give me a book from Bob Morgan. Because this is the second copy from Bob's book here in Hungary, I mean.
Is your book the reference work for this? I mean, there's a lot of, I'll call it old revenue catalogs. I mean, I've got several of them and stuff, but I mean, they're really out of date, you know. So is yours up to date? I mean, is yours the best work on the market?
Yes, of course.
Okay. He's shy and
I
bashful.
No, it is not my opinion. I won with the large medal of the European Philatelic Federation 2 years before. For excellent philatelic research, only
Fantastic.
1 medal is given per year.
Well, that's a good thing, because if I'm going to go after a catalog, I'd like to get the best one first, you know. All right.
Maybe in 4 or 5 years, I write it.
Put an update out.
And make an update and write about 50 or 100 pages to it, because some things is not written, like the units of the revenues is not evaluated recently. And
Gotcha.
I have also a good topic with the perfins on revenues. Some pages we can see on my book, and I am a big perfin collector also here in Hungary. Maybe my collection is the 3rd.
Yeah, you're speaking my language now. Let me make sure I understand this. You've got a section in your book on
Paul
perfins.
is very more better than me.
Paul's better than a bunch of us.
Maybe he is the first or the second collector of Hungarian perfins, and he have many perfins maybe on revenues also, but I didn't see it.
Oh my gosh! Well, thank you all. I think I'm going to stop recording now. So let's go to stop recording.
Thank you, Károly.